After a drubbing of 3-0 in the set 1 of the semi-finals of the Lindores Abbey Rapid Challenge 2020, Hikaru Nakamura was up for it against Magnus Carlsen, and he needed to win set 2. So, in the first game, as we saw in set 2, Magnus Carlsen sacrificed his knight and got very good position indeed with 3 connected passed pawns against a bare king with no pawns in front of him, and yet Magnus couldn't able to convert it and lost to Hikaru Nakamura. But when Hikaru won that game, suddenly his confidence was sky high. It was skyrocketed, and in the next 3 games, all he did was to make a draw in each of them and won set 2 comprehensively, which forces the match go into the set 3 of the semi-finals, which was the day reserved for set 3. Today, in first game, Magnus was right. Both had complicated positions, but game eventually fizzed out to a draw. So we come to game number 2. And in game 2, Hikaru is white, Magnus is black. So let's see what happens. e4 by Hikaru, e5, knight f3, knight c6, bishop e5, the Rye Lopez. So Magnus Carlsen is black. He must have played knight f6, Berlin defense. No, he plays a6, Morphy defense. Bishop a4, knight f6, castles. He must have played bishop e7 at least. No, he goes for open Spanish variation of the Rye Lopez. d4 by Hikaru. If you take, then rook e1, the knight is pinned against the king, and white gets tremendous compensation for that. b5 attacks the bishop. Bishop b3, again you cannot take this because of rook e1, and again this knight is in front of the king. So he plays d5. White captures the pawn on e5. Bishop e6, the pawn was attacked twice, and now normally you play this move, knight b d2, and this is the normal book move, pretty much recommended move. But now Hikaru comes up with a brand new move, queen e2. Incredible. So first surprise for Magnus right from the start, but he's not flustered at one bit. He plays bishop e7, just wants to continue the development, developing all the pieces and preparing for castle. So rook d1, placing the rook against the queen. That's not a bad move either. Castles, and now c4. So Hikaru is trying to solve his problems tactically. Obviously you can see that his minor pieces are somewhat shut down, and this rook isn't coming out anyway soon. So he tries to play c4, try to develop this knight through here, and then pawn takes, and this pawn controlling this and this for stopping this probably would be better. Then comes b takes and bishop takes. No recapture because of the pin. Bishop c5, developing the bishop with a tempo. Bishops are exchanged. Queen takes and queen b8 coming out of the pin. Bishop b3. The bishop was attacked, so bishop comes out. Knight a5. So basically the aim is to exchange this knight here and to ruin the pawn structure. Also try to initiate d4 after playing this knight somewhere at a protective square, although there isn't any at the moment. And if you try to play bishop takes, then queen takes b2 would be devastating. Of course, bishop takes, rook takes, then queen takes would be devastating. So don't want to try that. So knight d4, just try to correct the pawn structure. c5 from Magnus. Knight takes e6, f takes e6, f3 attacking the knight. c4 from Magnus. Hikaru takes the knight on e4, c takes b3, e takes d5, b takes a2. So Hikaru has to capture the pawn on a2. Now knight c4. attacking the b2 pawn and the queen at the same time. So queen d4. Well, Carlsen can take even this pawn as well, but then pawn takes e6 and position would still be very difficult to play, because there would be the position would be equal, uh, but the best moves won't be easy to find. And in these complicated positions it is easy to blunder even an equal position, so you have to be very careful. So there comes queen b3, defending the knight and attacking the rook at the same time. The rook has to move from the protection of this b2 pawn. Knight c3, pawn drops anyway, knight takes, rook b1, pinning the knight. Looks like Carlsen has blundered a knight, but no. Queen c4, queen takes, knight takes, d takes e6, and again he can take the knight, he can take the pawn with his knight on c4, but he tries to take this pawn with the rook. Rook takes, and now comes rook takes a6. Obviously that can't be taken because of rook b8 will be checkmate. So rook e8, putting pressure on this e6 pawn. And then comes knight c7, great move by Hikaru, protecting the pawn and attacking the rook at the same time. And simple idea would have been to play rook c8 and the position would still have been fine. Say rook c8, rook b5, you can take the rook, knight takes, and the position isn't bad either, probably equal. Maybe knight can find some way to coordinate with this rook to capture this pawn on e6. But here Carlsen plays rook d8, which was a serious blunder. Now if you can find the only move in this position that can win the game for white, well, I'll be giving you a good applause and hats off. So take a pause and think. Well, if you found it out, brilliant. And if you want to enjoy the show, it's rook c6. This is the only move which wins for white here. And there aren't any easy continuations. Carlsen played knight e3. But let's see what happens if you play knight a5. Then comes another tactical shot if you can find. And this was the same tactical shot which was played after knight e3. Well, if you found it out, brilliant. And otherwise, it was rook d6. Can't be taken simply because of rook b8 and mate in 2. So rook comes to c8, then would have been knight d5, rook e8, attacking the pawn twice, e7, and if you play knight c6, knight c7 is absolutely crushing. And again, taking this pawn would be met by rook here, or not that even, rook here, or you can just take the knight. Pardon me for making such silly errors in a winning position. You can just take the knight and you are a piece up. Similar thing would happen with this, and if you take this, then knight takes rook. Alternatively, after rook c6, you can try to defend this knight by playing rook e4. Maybe like this, maybe that would help. But again, white has a tactical shot here. Rook takes c4. And if you play rook takes c4, e7 is absolutely gone for black. The rook is threatened, no time to recapture, and if rook moves, then you just promote it anyway. Totally piece up. All hopes dished, dashed. Dished, dashed. Well, after rook c6, he plays knight e3, but rook d6 anyway. Already mentioned, cannot take it because of rook b8. So he goes rook c8. Then comes rook d7, defending the knight on c7. h6, e7. Good move. King f7 is not possible, obviously, because of rook f1 check, or not even rook f1. But you can just check it straight away with queen, and it would be double check. And in double check, only king has to move, and that would be devastating. So king goes to h7, And after rook e1, Carlsen resigns the game. So Hikaru has bounced back, and boy didn't he bounce back strongly. He certainly did. So why did he resign? Let's make a random move. Rook g8. But then Hikaru makes a queen. Rook g takes, knight takes, rook takes. And now how can you win the piece? Simple, rook d3. And this knight cannot check because it's placed 2 squares diagonally, and a knight cannot check any piece. Knight cannot check the king, which is placed 2 squares diagonally. So that's why this knight goes, and also this knight cannot defend it because the rook is not on e7, instead it's on e8. So there's a piece down here. So after rook e1, and if you look at the times of the players, Hikaru had 13 minutes against Magnus only 25 seconds for that. So you can see how much did he dominate. So there we go. After round 2, excuse me. Yes, after round 2, Hikaru was a point up. Let's see what happened in game 3. This was very interesting indeed. And in this game, Magnus is white and Hikaru is black. Magnus opens with d4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, anti-Nimzo Indian, queen's gambit declined, knight c3, bishop e7, bishop f4, the Harwitz attack, and now castles by Hikaru, e3, just trying to develop the bishop, knight b d7, so keeping everything solid as black, and this is what Hikaru's policy and position has been, to keep everything solid. And now bishop e2, probably he could have gone with bishop d3, that would have been better. After capture, you can just capture the pawn and everything is alright. But bishop e2, he takes c, he can still recapture, but evades, he plays castles, the knight b6 defends the pawn, but queen c2 puts indirect pressure on this pawn. We will see this knight getting out of the way, or maybe here, or probably knight b5 for that matter, in order to capture this pawn on c4. Knight f to d5, bishop g3, c5, d takes c, bishop takes c, rook f d1, putting pressure on this knight cannot capture, placing it against queen, and if this knight takes, pawn takes, and knight takes, or maybe knight takes, pawn takes, and position would be still alright. So he goes bishop d7, knight e5, pressuring on bishop, rook c8, placing the rook against the queen, not a bad idea by Hikaru. Rook a c1, just putting more pieces on this, but possibly try to put the pieces the other way around. Just queen on c1, rook on c2, maybe ideal position, but still not bad either. Knight b4 attacks the queen, queen comes to e4, targeting the pawn this way. So now, as you can see, 3 pieces are attacking this pawn, and let's see this pawn going sooner, and Carlsen would take the pawn back. But he has a compensation for pawn anyway. Black has this bad bishop here, and with a man-to-man comparison, he'd always be tied up with this pawn on c4. And let's see for the moment. Knight 4 to d5, so he's retreating his knight back since queen has left the square, maybe losing a little bit of time. Queen comes to f3 just to place its claim on the queen side. That's a good move. Beg your pardon, on the king side. And now if he wants to simplify, he can basically just exchange on c3, rook takes, and after queen e7 he still remains a pawn up, but this pawn, he can dump this pawn if he wants to. But after queen f3, he makes a tactical error, or I should say a positional error, is to play bishop a4, and this was a big mistake indeed, because after knight takes a4, there we go, what this bishop was doing was to cover this queen, but not anymore. And once this happens, e4, and this knight is pinned. Rook is in front of it, and this knight cannot move from here, so you lose this piece. Knight takes b2, e takes d5, knight takes d1, rook takes d1. So you have two bishops, or I should say bishop and a knight against a rook. So this is winning for white. E takes d5, and he can play rook takes here, but he chooses another good way to just eliminate that passed pawn. Then and there, bishop takes c4. Wow, this is brilliant use of pins. As you can see, can't take because of the pin. Queen e7 coming out of that, but then bishop eliminates that annoying pawn on d5. Brilliant positioning. If rook takes d5 had happened, then this bishop won't have been here, controlling everything. And as we say, a bishop sitting in the center is a breathing dragon. So bishop d6, putting double pressure on this knight. Then another tactical shot. Brilliant. Three pieces are attacking on this f7, and one of them, if queen attacks, then this opens the line of this rook attacking this bishop. So he takes full toll of that, full advantage of that. Bishop takes f7 check. Brilliant. Rook takes would have been ideal, because then queen takes, knight takes, and you can just simply take this bishop on d6. It is served on a platter. But he plays king h8, and he doesn't want to risk of exchanging queens in this position, and he plays another crushing move here, queen h5. This is brilliant, just getting out of the pin and still protecting this bishop. Queen d5 would have been disastrous, because then bishop takes knight and everything would have been all over. Then f7 would have dropped, but queen h5 just defends this brilliantly here. And obviously this is not possible, because then bishop g6 gains time and then you lose it. But eventually this was played. Bishop takes e5, bishop g6 threatening mate on h7, and you play h6, then bishop takes e5, and again the advantage is restored. But now queen takes h6 is threatened, so queen g5 is played. Queen takes g5, h takes d5, and this is a winning position. h4, brilliant. You cannot take this pawn because of rook d7 attacking this pawn, and if you play rook g8, then bishop f7 is absolutely crushing, just removing the defender. Rook c5 attacking the bishop, but then comes bishop b2 threatening bishop a3. Two rooks on the same line. So rook b5 just coming out of that, bishop a3 anyway, rook c8, h5 just protecting the bishop and solidifying the position. Good move. Rook a5 attacking the bishop, bishop tucks back to b2, and now rook takes a2, but this was all desperate. Rook d2 threatening bishop takes g7 check and picking the rook. So king g8 just getting out of the check, and now bishop b1 attacks the rook here, and already this position looks very much lost, because the best move that I can see is to just give this rook and be a bishop down. But he plays rook a5, and after rook d7 suddenly there's no defense to this g7 pawn, and already the position is hopeless. Plays rook b5, defends that pawn, and this is very good. If you go rook takes g7 straight away, then rook can eliminate this defender and you can take the rook with the king. So he goes bishop a2 check first, king h7, and then bishop takes g7. So another way of defending it. Brilliant. There's already a threat of discover check, and what job this pawn is doing to cover on g6, and there's absolutely no defense of this discover check. He tries g4, but this is all in vain, because bishop e5 check, king h6, bishop f4 check, king takes h5, bishop f7 check, king h4, and well, he could have played rook d5 here simply. Maybe that would have been brilliant. If he had played rook d5, then rook takes, g3 check, king here, and then you just take the rook, and there would have been absolutely no defense to mate. Then comes king h2, just getting rid of any ridiculous checks on the back rank. G3 check is too desperate. F takes G, King G4, then comes Bishop E6 check, King H5, and the simple move would have been to play just Rook G7, and Black is in a Zugzwang. There's absolutely no defense to Bishop G4 mate, because the only defense that you can see is to just give up the piece. That's it. Give up this rook. But he plays Rook H7 check here. After King H5, he plays Rook H7 check, which is still winning, not losing. King G6, Rook H6 check, King G7, and after Bishop takes C8, Hikaru Nakamura resigned the game. This is a hopeless situation, and he wouldn't have done anything. So it's 1-all after 3 games. In the 4th game, Hikaru and Magnus drew their games, and Hikaru was so pissed after drawing that game. He just couldn't believe it. Why did he draw that? But he was somewhat forced in drawing that game. So we reach an Armageddon game, and from nowhere, after being 3-0 down in set 1, Hikaru has forced an Armageddon, which to me is already an incredible achievement. It's very difficult to come back and stage a comeback like this after getting thrashed in set 1 3-0 without any chance. So kudos to Hikaru. Well, the match isn't over yet. So we are still here in the Armageddon, and since Hikaru finished above Magnus, so he had color preferences to make, and he chose black against Magnus. And remember, there isn't no increment in this. White has 5 minutes against black's 4, but the catch here is white has to win this, whereas black at worst only needs a draw to secure his place. So if the game is drawn, then black goes through. Well, he wins, then he goes through anyway, but if he draws, it still goes through, but white has the time advantage of a minute without any increments. That's obviously, so which plays somewhat into Hikaru's hands, because if he knows that he only needs to draw, then he's good enough to make out of it. So let's see. Magnus is white. D4, knight f6, c4, e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, bishop e7, all the same as we saw in game 3. Bishop f4, castles, e3, knight bd7, bishop e2, d takes c, castles, and here Hikaru diverts. Hikaru played knight b6 in game 3 against Magnus, and there was just that one blunder of bishop a4 which lost him the game. But here he goes for a6, and this forces a4, because now you have to recapture the pawn so that b5 doesn't occur. So if b5, obviously b5 is not possible because you will just simply take it, and if pawn takes, then rook drops, rook is undefended. This is a simple common tactic, but a4 also has its drawbacks. First of all, this b4 square is vacant. Either this bishop or one of the knights will take this b4 square and create some nuisance for white, and it can serve a purpose of disturbing white's plans by having one of its pieces on this b4 square. Well, let's see, we are far away from that. Knight d5 is a step in that direction, first step in the direction, also attacking the bishop, and he doesn't want to exchange the knights. Well, of course he doesn't want to exchange the knights, white I was talking about, because then pawn takes and this pawn is defended, and then when c6, then this extra pawn can become very dangerous indeed. So bishop tucks back to g3, now comes c5, bishop takes on c4, that extra pawn is recovered, c takes d4, e takes d4, and now knight 7 b6. Somewhat pretty much similar position, but not so similar indeed. Bishop goes back to b3, a5 just closing it together, and knight e5 just centralizing the knight. That's a good move. Bishop d7, and in that game we saw queen c2 and one of the rooks was on d1. is putting pressure here, but there is no e pawn now, so there is no e4 challenge to tuck this knight away from here. But there we go, knight e4, bishop c6. The main policy is with white is you have to win, so you will try to win through time or through any means whatsoever. Knight takes c, b takes, rook c1 attacking the c6 pawn, knight b4 defends the c6 pawn, queen e2, knight 6 d5, and rook fd1, which to the eyes it can look bad, but it isn't, and rook e8, possibly f5 just to kick this knight away from this square would have been better, and then creating try to trap this bishop. Maybe that would have been better. Of course that bishop won't have been trapped because of knight d6 ideas, and things could have been very nasty indeed, but not bad either, but not bad. Maybe after f5 you can just eliminate one of these bishops, one of these knights, and then you can just recapture and everything would be fine. So there we go, queen f3, rook a7, bishop e5, and this was somewhat time waste move from white because the bishop can be easily tucked back after, let's say, f6 to f4. So why you have played e5? But Hikaru doesn't play f6, he plays bishop f8, and this just gives a lot of advantage after bishop takes d5. However, here he plays queen g3, which means that he has to give way to this bishop, and he would say bye bye to this bishop, or you should say let go this bishop. I was trying to get a good word for it, so there we go, it would have been f6. Now as I said, let go of that bishop, knight bishop takes, knight takes, and now rook f8, the rook was attacked, probably appropriate, knight e4, and I was staggered to see Hikaru's next move. Probably he could have played any other move, let's say king h8 for that matter, just to come out of this pin, but he plays queen b8 to exchange the queens, and Carlsen doesn't accept the invitation. Instead he plays queen f3, and then comes rook e8, g3, king h8 now, knight c5. So still, so far so good, no worries. Rook e7, bishop c4 trying to activate this bishop, possibly try to play b3 for that matter. Now e5, so he's trying to break the center, d takes, and queen takes. So already a lot of pressure here by the black on this e5, and things look a little bit shaky for white, and up to this stage Hikaru had 2.5 minutes to Magnus's 3 minutes, but still half a minute advantage isn't big enough for white, especially when you are in a must-win situation. Certainly not. Excuse me. Rook d2, then comes queen g5, attacking the rooks, but he found that very good tactical defense, knight b3, knight b6 attacking the bishop, h4 first, intermediate move, queen e5, and then rook e2, queen c7, and then after the exchange of rooks like this, then he plays knight takes a5. So he's defending this bishop like this, although rook is defending it, but it was kind of a double edge. Still white is better here, but again, now at this moment Hikaru had a minute and 57 seconds, whereas Magnus had a minute and 58 seconds, just a second advantage. So Hikaru had catched up to Magnus's time, and this was fantastic because black has everything in his hands, just a draw and you go through. So the ball was in black's court here. Hikaru plays queen e5, and although machines might say advantage, but it's very difficult to convert it to a one. Knight b3 played, knight takes a4, And now comes bishop f7. Well, this move knight b3 was a mistake in my opinion. This knight b3 move, but well, you are if against time, then you have to make such moves which are unpleasant. Knight takes a4, bishop f7, rook f8, and now comes rook c4. And it looks that he has blundered a piece. Rook takes f7, but no, he has chance. He can play rook e4 here. Let's have a look what happens if rook e4. Not highlighting this with arrows because this was a very critical moment indeed. If he plays rook e4 here, still position is fine. Queen b8 defends the back rank. Queen f4, queen exchange is not possible because of this. Rook f8 defends the queen, and now you capture that piece and attacks this knight as well. But then comes queen takes, rook takes, and knight takes b2. Black stays a pawn up, but this pawn can be easily tracked, and this king doesn't have h6 or g6 or g5 for that matter, so this position can be, I would say, draw. Another possible alternative after rook takes f7, which was played in the game, is queen e4. And then comes queen takes, rook takes, threatening mate, king g8. So rook can block then, and now you capture that. But then knight takes b2, almost the similar situation, and again this pawn can be easily tracked. Still a draw. But after rook takes f7, Magnus Carlsen, the world champion in an Armageddon, who had just a minute, plays rook takes b4. Wow. This is what you do when you reach the Armageddon game. Queen e1 check, picking up this rook, and a check. King h2, queen takes b4, queen takes c6, and after rook f8, it's a simple move defending the back rank. Magnus Carlsen, the world champion, in the semi-final, in final set, in the Armageddon, resigns the game, which means that Hikaru Nakamura goes into the final and Magnus is eliminated. Wow, some people might call it an upset, but I would call it pretty much overconfidence. You may like it or not, but it was an overconfidence. When you give a 3-0 drubbing to Hikaru Nakamura in a set 1 itself, you just walk away into the final. Just walk into the final straight away, not even having a glimpse of him. But this is what chess is. It's a very, very great leveler. You can have good days. You might be the best in the world, but if you don't play well, then it can hit you really hard indeed. So out of nowhere, after 3-0 drubbing, as I'm keep mentioning, because even I couldn't believe myself what has happened. After a 3-0 drubbing, out of nowhere, Hikaru Nakamura goes through into the finals, and the finals will be played on the 1st of June 2020. The set 1 will be there. He will face against Daniel Dubov. We will see you then. Till then, stay safe, take care, bye.